afternoon to you. 4 o'clock time for Sports for CLE. Thanks for joining us. Hope you're having a good afternoon. So it continues to go back and forth. We heard yesterday and the day before Andrew Berry, Kevin Stefanski reiterating they had no intentions of trading Myles Garrett, who has requested a trade. And today, Mary Kay Cabot, who is down at the Combine, reports Myles Garrett not open to a contract extension from the Browns, league sources telling her at the NFL Combine. So again, this will continue to go on. Remember, Myles still has 2 years left under contract, so we'll see how that goes. More news from the Combine. Tests revealed that Abdul Carter, one of the top guys in the entire draft, has a stress reaction in his right foot. So a small stress, lack of a better term, fracture. He will not require surgery, so he won't be working out at the Combine. He is still planning on working out during Penn State's Pro Day, but again, a small stress fracture will require him not to be working out at the Combine coming up the next couple of days. Albert Breer, this from NFL Draft with Josh and Hayden, talking about what the Browns' plans at quarterback this year could be.
I think Cleveland's going to attack the quarterback position on multiple fronts.
Is that from because this is the style of front office that they don't believe that they'll ever be drafting in the top 5 ever again? All these factors combined.
Yeah, I think it is that they feel like they've got a team that can compete right now. Is it a little bit of an overcorrection? Probably. But remember, Andrew Berry has the experience having been in Indianapolis with an injured Andrew Luck, right? And he has the experience of having been in Philly when, Howie took back over and they all of a sudden started just slamming resources down on the quarterback. For Cleveland, I don't think it's the worst idea in the world to, Cousins, Cam Ward, Deshaun Watson in the room. If you get it right, no one's going to remember the rest. And it's that important. And so I wouldn't be surprised at all if you see Cleveland attack it on all fronts.
And I agree wholeheartedly with Albert Breer. You get the quarterback position right, nobody cares how you got it done. Fortunately, the Browns have not gotten that done. Mel Kiper, ESPN's draft analyst, on why he thinks Cam Ward makes sense to the Browns at number 2 overall.
I think arm strength, all the arm angles he can throw with, and certainly for Cleveland, I think in the weather conditions in Cleveland, Baltimore, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, it makes sense to go with a guy that has a stronger arm. Obviously more mobile than Shedeur as well. You saw him at Incarnate Word, at Washington State, out in Pullman, dealing with weather conditions here, throwing on the move accurately down the field. Cleveland, obviously, with Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow in that division, all those great quarterbacks in the AFC, need to get it going at quarterback. Obviously, Deshaun Watson trade, one of the worst, if not the worst in NFL history. So now you go, you reset it, you get Cam Ward, you got yourself, if he is as good as he could be, now you get yourself a quarterback in that division in the AFC that can go toe-to-toe with all those other great signal callers.
Again, it'll be interesting to see. There was momentum that the Browns were leaning towards Shedeur Sanders before the Combine. Now at the Combine, you're hearing more and more the Browns attached to Cam Ward. It's just the games that go on during this time leading up to the NFL Draft. This is kind of interesting as well. So take a look. Shedeur Sanders, or actually Mel Kiper, reporting that sources around the league believe Kevin Stefanski is infatuated with Shedeur Sanders. Head coach loves his ability to play within structure. So that's NFL notifications. Kind of interesting. So again, you're hearing all kinds of things, and that's not uncommon. Take a look at Shedeur Sanders. This is in the Combine, outside the Combine in Indianapolis. He's walking around outside. He has Browns, Vikings, Saints hats all hanging on the back of his backpack, and that is likely because those are the teams that he has met with. We know that he met with the Browns, but usually when you get one of those guys in, you give him a hat, you talk to him, so people want to read anything into it that they want to. It just means he's met with those teams in all likelihood. All right, Hendon Hooker, reportedly most likely going to be traded or released before the start of next season since entering the NFL. He's thrown just 9 passes in 2 years, 6 completions, 62 yards. He has been training with Jordan Palmer, the quarterback coach guru, who has also trained Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Sam Darnold. There are some scouts in the NFL that believe Hooker still has a lot of football left in him and that he has the potential to be a starter in this league. One scouts believe that the Lions tarnished the beginning of his career and hurt him more than helped him. Again, Hooker could very well be one of those quarterbacks who is on the move. More news relative to players that are in the NFL. Sources believe the Packers have had trade conversations centering around their outstanding cornerback Jair Alexander, and they're open to moving him for the right price. He's only 28, two-time Pro Bowler, considered to be one of the best cornerbacks that could be available via the trade market this season. So it'll be interesting to see. Andrew Berry has a propensity to trade. He likes cornerbacks as Alexander in the future. All right, we're going to turn our attention to the Cavaliers. Continue to play really good basketball as the regular season kind of winds down. Stephen A. Smith, ESPN's First Take, on how he views the Cavs and their chances in the Eastern Conference.
I want to state for the record, I believe the Cleveland Cavaliers are not to be slept on. The Cleveland Cavaliers could win the chip. They could beat anybody. When you look at their athleticism, their depth, what we've been seeing from Darius Garland, what I know I'm going to get from that brother Donovan Mitchell. When you see Mobley and how he has evolved, when you see Kenny Atkinson, and this is not to throw any shade on Bickerstaff, because look, this brother was in Cleveland last year. He's doing a hell of a job in Detroit this year.
Yeah,
but Atkinson and the job that he is doing in Cleveland, you just can't say enough about it. And I'm here to tell y'all right now, I look at Cleveland, they got shooting, they got size, they got athleticism, they got rebounding, they got defense, and they got a number one option. They got a star who can close because Donovan Mitchell is just that dude. I'm not sleeping on Cleveland at all. One of the best games, Tim, that I watched this year was when Oklahoma City went to Cleveland and lost in a nail-biter.
That was the best game I've watched all season.
That was the best game of the year. I loved it.
It's kind of interesting, and the more you see, the more you think Kenny Atkinson will be in the running for that Coach of the Year award at the end of the season. Again, Cavs have to show it in the playoffs, but, man, they are looking good. All right, let's turn our attention to the Guardians. So far this spring, Lane Thomas has been hitting the ball really well. He was acquired at the deadline last year. He's 2 of 5, 3 walks, a homer, 3 RBIs, a stolen base this spring. Now take a look at his last couple of years. 28 homers only a couple of years ago with 86 runs batted in, 20 stolen bases. Fell off a bit last year with just 15 home runs, 63 RBIs, and 32 stolen bases. Remember, he split time between the Nationals and the Guardians. Started slow with the Guardians, but he did come up with some really big hits in the postseason. Antonetti is excited about what he sees from Lane Thomas and having him for an entire season.
Lane is one of the guys I'm really excited to see what he can do in a full season with the organization. He obviously went through a lot last year, getting traded again mid-season. But we think Lane is a really capable major league player that can contribute in every facet of the game. We think he's a very good and reliable outfielder in either center or right. He runs the bases exceptionally well, and we think he can be a really productive hitter, as we got to see in the second half of September and into the postseason.
It's interesting that they're going to need Lane Thomas to be effective at the plate for this offense to go. It is a guy that has the potential to hit 20, 25, maybe even 30 home runs. He's looked, the more you see him, the more you like him, the more you want to see him, which is always a good thing. But Guardians need Lane Thomas to be effective offensively if they're going to do what they want to do, which is get back to the playoffs and make a deep run. We're going to step aside, take a quick timeout. We turn our attention to the Browns. Scouting Combine continues. Quincy Carrier from Untitled, Unfiltered Browns coverage will join us. Sports4CLE. I'll be right back.
With the new Monopoly Bonus Spectacular family of scratch-offs from the Ohio Lottery, you can uncover a spectacular amount of winnings. With 5 games from $1 to 20, multipliers from 5 times to 100 times, over $113 million in total cash prizes and chance bonuses. What you find under a greenhouse could change everything.
We turn our attention to the Browns. Earlier this week, Atlanta Falcons GM Terry Fontenot said at his media availability at the Combine that the Falcons were comfortable paying Kirk Cousins as QB2. That would mean they would have to pay a $10 million roster bonus due in a couple of weeks. Adam Schefter, ESPN's NFL insider, with his read of the Kirk Cousins situation, this from the Pat McAfee Show.
Kirk Cousins, Terry Fontenot said yesterday, like, hey, we're comfortable with just sticking with this guy. He'll be the backup. We've talked that, like, that's probably not going to be the case. The Browns might make sense. Is he completely separate from the other guys? Like, what happens with Stafford? Does that matter at all to what is going to potentially happen with Kirk Cousins?
Yeah, I think he's separate. And I know the Falcons have said all that they've said. The Broncos said something similar last year about Russell Wilson, and then they wound up releasing him. And I'd be surprised if Kirk Cousins is in Atlanta this season. However it plays out, I mean, that I just don't see it that way. But if they want to pay their backup quarterback more money and sink another $10 million in guaranteed money into him, then I guess he can be there. See, he's got a no-trade clause.
You see.
So he would have to sign off on it. He could veto every trade. So eventually, I think the Falcons are going to have to release him. And if and when he is released, you would hope it would be sooner rather than later while there are quarterback chairs, because if he waits later, they don't owe him anything, but they could do it later, and then he doesn't really have an ideal landing spot. The sooner they let him go, the more options he would have. And the Falcons already are paying his salary, which is why a team like, I'm not telling it to be the Browns, but the Browns make sense because they've got other financial commitments and obligations. He's got a relationship with Kevin Stefanski. He's a Midwestern guy.
Let's welcome in Quincy Carrier from Untitled Unfiltered Browns coverage. So, Quincy, here's the thing. Falcons probably aren't going to get more than a 4th or a 5th round pick for Kirk Cousins in a trade. Do you think the value of a 4th or 5th round pick for an owner is $10 million? It's pretty steep to me.
Yeah, you're probably not even getting the 4th and 5th round pick. That's pretty ambitious, right, for Kirk Cousins at this point of his career. Talking about maybe a 6th or 7th round pick. And, like, you can have conversations. The Browns pretty much traded about, like, $20 million for pick 93 with Buffalo, right, when they traded Amari Cooper. But for a day 3 pick, yeah, you're probably not willing to give up any money for that. And you're going to try to make teams think as much as possible. If you want Kirk, you better trade for him. But the reality is the way Kirk's contract's set up, either you release him or you keep him and you spend all that extra money, and teams pretty much don't believe him when he says that he's going to keep Kirk on the team.
All right. Is Matthew Stafford being available? And it's looking more and more like he is available. Is that good news for the Browns?
It's good news for the Browns because as many quarterback options as possible in an offseason like this is what you want, right? You want as many options available to you because the draft just doesn't provide too many particularly attractive options at the number 2 pick, in my opinion. So, yeah, I want as many veteran options as possible to be available for Cleveland because the more and more, the closer we get to the draft, the more it feels like you're going to have to solve this problem in free agency with some veterans.
All right. I know you've addressed this on your show. Avoiding instant gratification relative to the quarterback. What do you mean by that, and just kind of your thoughts on it?
Yeah, what I mean by that is saying, hey, there's a lot of people who just want to feel better about the Cleveland Browns, right? Like I've heard a lot of people talk about why they want the Browns to take a quarterback, and it's like, hey, if this works out, it could be the magic pass to get out of all the trouble that you're in because of the Deshaun Watson contract. But if that's the reason that you want to take a quarterback, then that's not a good reason to take a quarterback. Your reason to take a quarterback at 2 should be motivated by the player, not by the benefits of if that player works out, right? If you're talking about the position more than you're talking about what that player brings to the table and why that guy stacks up to other guys who are selected there, then you're finding yourself reaching, and the history of reaching at quarterback is not great. You will feel better from April until September if you reach on a quarterback and you take one because you feel like there's an answer there. But eventually you're going to have to play that quarterback. And if that quarterback has a career like Mitchell Trubisky, who was reached on at the number 2 pick and didn't work out, or Blake Bortles, then you're going to be sitting here in 4 years wondering how are you in a worse situation than you were when Deshaun Watson failed.
Yeah, and again, that's a little frightening. And it's not unique to the Browns. Everybody reaches for quarterbacks, but you got to stop doing that. Also, I know you've done this. What do you think people need to know about Shedeur Sanders?
The thing about Shedeur is that the arm strength stuff, I don't really have a concern with him on that. It's the accuracy is fine too. It's his tendencies that I have an issue with, and his overall lack of size. Like the fact that he didn't measure in, or I believe he's declined. Like, correct me if I'm wrong there, but I believe he's declined to measure in at the combine. That's a concern, right? There's worries that he's under 200 pounds, under 6'1", which is very, very light. We're talking about Bryce Young level weight. And then the athleticism, I don't think, is even close to what Bryce Young was bringing to the table athletically, which makes me concerned about if his play style and if his mechanics can actually translate to the next level. There's reason to be excited about Shedeur if you're able to get him, but there's also reason to be very concerned about him, right? Like, because he's just not even close to a top 10, top 5 level prospect in this year's class. He's pretty much averaged around 22 on most big boards. So yeah, there's some good there with Shedeur, but a lot of physical concerns with him. And I would have loved to have those concerns erased at the combine, but it seems like he's not going to do any of that.
Yeah, and again, the thing about pro days that's different is that's all controlled and scripted by the player and his agent. So it's just not the same.
And to that point, let's think about how much of Shedeur Sanders' entire public football career has been that kind of pro day level scripted experience for him, right? Like, that's got to be my concern if I'm a scout looking at Shedeur. It's like, man, everything was presented through the most optimal lens possible. His father coached him throughout college, throughout 8th grade, throughout high school. He does the all-star game circuit, but he does it at East-West Shrine game, where his father has way more control over how information is going to get out because the connections that he has at East-West Shrine. And then he goes out and he doesn't do the combine, which is a less controlled environment, but he's going to opt for the pro day. Like, at some point, if the only time people are letting you see Bigfoot is through these obscure camera angles and bad video quality, you have to imagine, like, hey, there's something up there that they don't want me to see. And that's the vibe that Shedeur gives off. It's like, man, it feels like they don't ever want this dude to not be in a controlled environment, which, like, concerns me.
You've just given him a draft nickname, Bigfoot. Shedeur Sanders, Bigfoot. All right. Also from your show, best case scenario for Browns quarterback room in 2025.
Yeah, I think the best case scenario is that you get a accomplished veteran in there to start for the year, right? If you feel comfortable enough that a lot of Kirk Cousins' issues were coming back from that Achilles injury and the shoulder injury that he claims to have suffered against the New Orleans Saints, and he will be fine there at the quarterback position for at least a year. Matt Stafford will probably be the guy that I look at as, hey, he's going to be the best option you can get, period, at the quarterback position, as long as you can keep 33-2 and get him. Then I think it's going to be worth the price. But yeah, that's the best case scenario for the Cleveland Browns, is they're able to get somebody like Matt Stafford, who you don't just believe you can win with, but you do believe legitimately that if you have a good enough team around him, you can win a championship with.
What do you think about Will Howard? Why does he intrigue you so much?
This is one of those things I try to balance, right? Because everybody has a way that they like certain positions being played. And I've seen players who do everything that I like and I love them, but they don't necessarily work out sometimes, right? Sometimes those players that I love, they do work out. When it comes to the quarterback position, I am a very traditional guy. I like quarterbacks who could throw with anticipation. I like quarterbacks who could be on time. I like quarterbacks who could layer over the second level. And I'm not really too obsessed with physical qualities at the quarterback position, especially like arm strength and stuff like that, right? And that means that Will Howard, he checks a lot of my boxes because this is a quick processor, somebody who makes good, fast decisions at Ohio State. I think his size is a plus. He is a big quarterback. Like, I know people talk about Riley Leonard being a big body, significantly bigger than Riley Leonard. I think taller and wider than Riley, has that prototypical size at the quarterback position, makes fast decisions. And look, did he benefit from having some of the best wide receivers in all college football? Absolutely. Obviously he did. But that's not been a disqualifier for quarterbacks, right? If you look at Cam Ward, he has tremendous support at Miami. Elijah Arroyo, Damian Martinez, Xavier Restrepo, those all three NFL guys at Miami, right? You look at Shedeur Sanders, he was throwing the ball to the Heisman Trophy winner all year, right? So, yeah, Will Howard was throwing the guys, just like Joe Burrow was throwing the guys, just like Jaden Daniels was throwing the guys. But what I see with Will Howard was that for a lot of these guys, he was able to make their lives easier. Emeka Ibuka benefited immensely from Will Howard being there because he could throw to him on time. He can get him rolling downhill. Like, you didn't have that friction in Ohio State's offense that you had when Kyle McCord was in there. It felt like everybody was trying to overcome quarterback play. It felt like the quarterback play at Ohio State didn't hold back these wide receivers. It unlocked a lot more out of these wide receivers. And that's why I think Will Howard, like, there's something to him. I'm not going to go out here and say he's going to be like the best quarterback in this class. I don't know that. I just know that I like Will Howard. And if you get Will Howard in the late second or early third, you know, I would be hopeful about that turning into a draft pick that you would enjoy down the line.
You know, in researching all these guys, there was somebody that compared him to a young Ben Roethlisberger. I don't know if that's accurate or not. I think it might be a function of the size, but I'm intrigued to see that.
He's got a young Ben Roethlisberger body, but old Ben Roethlisberger arm. Right? Like, we forget Ben Roethlisberger.
We don't want that.
Ben Roethlisberger could whip the ball like nobody's business. He was the Josh Allen of his time. Like, he was famous for that. So, no, he's difficult. And this is what makes the projection on him difficult, right, Dave? He's such a big guy that it baffles you that he does not throw the ball harder than he does. So you ask yourself this question, like, is it something mechanical? Like, can that be adjusted? Not saying he has to have Josh Allen level arm strength, but can you get just a little bit more out of that arm on a consistent basis? Because if you can, I do think he can be a starter. But that's the question. Like, can he give you more than that from an arm strength perspective? Because right now I see somebody who's going to have to work the shallow part of the field 90% of the time, which makes it difficult for him on third and long in the NFL.
Quincy Carrier and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we'll head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports4CLE, I'll be right back. Stay with us.
Action-packed excitement returns to Rocket Arena. The 2025 Mid-American Conference Basketball Tournament, presented by Credit Union One, returns March 12th through the 15th. Pulses will rise and hearts will race as the men and women of the MAC put it all on the line. Tickets are on sale now at rocketarena.com. MAC Tournament Basketball. Be there!
We continue talking Browns with Quincy Carrier from Untitled Unfiltered Browns coverage on Sports4CLE. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Dave, Mike from West Virginia, love the show. If the Browns let Nick Chubb walk in free agency after not giving him a full offseason to train and get his strength back, if the Browns let him walk, this is the final straw. I'm done. It just seems like this organization has been a cluster frig and they can't get anything accomplished. To me, it's common sense on Andrew Berry's part. I love the Browns, but if Chubb goes, this will be it. And the fact that they won't put Bernie in the Ring of Honor is absolutely ridiculous as well. So, Dave, we'll see you. Have a good evening.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. So, again, the context in which they said they were going to let him explore free agency was kind of out of respect. The belief around the league circles, as you see here, is that the Browns will match any offer for Nick Chubb in free agency. They'll let the league do the work relative to what his next contract is worth. Quincy, there was a topic at the Combine with Andrew Berry where he couched it by saying we have the ultimate respect for Nick Chubb. So if somebody offers him ridiculously guaranteed money, maybe they kind of move away from him. But the intent wasn't. The intent was to be respectful of somebody who has meant so much to the organization.
They didn't want to Saquon Barkley themselves, right? Like with what Joe Sheen did with Saquon, where they offered him something low that insulted Saquon Barkley. And then Saquon was no longer receptive to any other contract negotiations. This seems like they're taking an opposite approach. Hey, we'll let the market come to you. That way, whatever we offer you will be market value and not disrespectful. So I would argue, while it does not feel this way, right? We would all like a deal done with Nick Chubb earlier, right? We want to retain him, especially with the question marks about who's going to be on this team as far as like Myles Garrett and everything else is concerned. You would want to retain Nick Chubb, and I think this is a move that indicates that the Browns are very protective of that relationship between front office and Nick Chubb, and they're actually taking extra steps to make sure that they don't damage it. And I think this is a way that they don't damage it. Basically, they're putting it out there. We're putting a soft transition tag on Nick Chubb. And I think that's a way that they make sure that they don't put themselves in a position where they insult him with what they believe to be a market level offer, and just let him find the market. Because I think they're pretty sure that the market's not going to be hot for running back. And I think Nick Chubb's agent is there too. But yeah, I think that's what they're trying to do.
All right, Myles Garrett. So we did this at the top of the show in our news segment. He says he's not open to a contract extension. Do you think the Browns can change his mind about the trade request? Are they closer to a contract extension? Well, it's everybody's kind of digging in.
Right, it's my Brian Windhurst. The language on that was interesting, though, right? Not open to a contract extension. Not saying they didn't say Myles Garrett is not open to returning to Cleveland or playing for the Browns. Just not open to a contract extension. Now, why do I think that language is important? Well, I don't think the Browns are trying to sign Myles Garrett to a contract extension. I think they're trying to sign him to a new deal. I think Myles wants to sign a new deal in Cleveland. Now, why would Myles want to do that? Walk with me here, right? Myles Garrett has expressed that, hey, if things go wrong, I want to go to a contender. Now, Dave, we've talked about this on the show. He has no leverage. Why does he have no leverage?
He has 2 years left on his contract.
2 years left on his contract, 1, and 2, he has nothing in that contract that dictates where he can be traded. You could trade him to Jacksonville Jaguars for all we care. I think what Myles is probably angling for is, 1, I think the team wants as much guaranteed money as possible to dissuade any kind of trade in the future. But I think Myles would probably like something like a no-trade clause in the contract, right? Which you got to get a new contract to be able to do that. Which is why I think the language on this is important. I think he's open to coming back to Cleveland, but he does want a better parachute if he ever decides he wants to go out. And I think this is about negotiating a better parachute. Hey, if I do say I want to be traded, I want some control about where I go. And that, given everything that happened this offseason, would make a ton of sense for both parties.
Well, yeah, and the Browns can claim victory because he's back, and he has a no-trade clause. But be careful, because that no-trade clause may be so he can make sure he's not going to, the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah, a deal has to have benefits on both sides in order to make any sense. The Browns get to keep him under guaranteed money for the next couple of years. They get to say, hey, look, see this out. Trust us. See this out. We're going to have a plan here. We're going to be competitive sooner than later. And then if they're right about that plan, then Myles is going to be a Brown forever. But if they're not right about that plan, then Myles gets to say, hey, okay, well, hey, look, I want out. I have a no-trade clause. Basically, you got to trade me where I want to be traded, or, I'm just going to cause havoc, right? So both sides get exactly what they want, and that would make sense. Now, I'm not saying that's exactly what's happening, Dave, but I am saying, that's interesting wording, right? It's interesting wording.
All right.
What's going on?
Let me present this to you. Cam Ward's available. Shedeur Sanders is available at number 2. Do you take the pick, or do you potentially trade back and pick up 2-3 first-round picks in future drafts?
So I have this is like the great draft Schrodinger's box complex of this all, because I think there are a lot of people living in two different worlds in offering like scenarios that require your foot be in two different worlds with this draft. I am somebody of the belief, Dave, that this quarterback class just ain't it, right? Like this just is not a quarterback class that a quarterback should go in the top 5 in, right? Like some quarterback classes are just like that. I believe that's the case. I don't think that these quarterbacks are top 5 picks in any world. And because I believe that, I don't think that there's going to be a lot of teams that are willing to trade up. And what I've been seeing is a lot of people saying, hey, look, the Browns aren't going to take a quarterback at 2, but they might trade back. Well, if there were quarterbacks in this class that were worth that number 2 overall pick, the Browns wouldn't trade the pick. They would just take the quarterback, right? But we're somehow saying that there is no quarterbacks in this class. The Browns shouldn't take a quarterback. But also the Browns should get like all these picks from a team that desperately wants a quarterback in order to fix their situation. And those two realities just don't make sense to me, because the Browns and maybe the Giants are the two teams that would be the most desperate for quarterback. And if they don't want to take a quarterback, it says a lot about where this class is. So why would they trade with the team that wants a quarterback less than they do? Why would a team trade up to get that pick? If the Browns don't even want to do it, they need a quarterback more, and they have the number 2 overall pick outright. So I don't know if there's going to be a great trade-up option. Both quarterbacks might be there at 2. Abdul Carter seems like he might go number 1 unless Tennessee Titans trade that pick. And if there's no Abdul there, right, and you're not in love with the quarterbacks and you can't find a great trade, that means number 2 is a bit of an interesting situation. And I think that's the scenario that I think is maybe the worst case scenario for the Cleveland Browns, but there's a good, strong possibility that they could pop up in there, because I don't know exactly what they do with the number 2 overall pick. If that's the case, do you just say, all right, well, I'm not in love with any of these prospects. We can't find a trade. Let's just take a quarterback? That doesn't have a great history of working out. Do you just take your best player available, maybe overdraft somebody like a Mason Graham, so you could just get a good player at number 2 or a really good player at number 2? That could work out fine, but not going to be seen as like the sexy move that you need for a team drafting at number 2. There's going to be a lot of questions that pose to them. But yeah, when it comes to number 2, I think they're going to have to stay there and pick. And it's just going to come down to who's the best player available, because I just don't think the trade offers are going to be there to move up. It feels like everybody that I talk to, right? Giants people, Tennessee people, everybody in the top 5 is talking about how they're going to trade back. And if everybody in the top 5 wants to trade back, then that means that the offers that you're going to get to trade back aren't that great.
Yeah, nobody's going to want to trade up. All right, before we go to break, dream scenario for second-round picks. So first pick in the second round. Dream scenario for the Browns for that one. Again, I know you've addressed this on your show.
Yes. So I think 33 is going to be an interesting spot. The end of the first round is going to be really interesting this year, because the Browns are going to be sitting there. Let's say the Browns get lucky, Abdul Carter's at 2, they take Abdul Carter. That means there's a great deal of mystery about what the Browns are going to do there, because their 2 biggest needs, offensive tackle, quarterback, might be on the table at 33. So if you're a team that maybe, let's say, you're super high on Jackson Dart, right? But you're worried that Cleveland might take Jackson Dart at 33. I don't think this is going to be the case, but let's just throw a name in there, right? You're going to want to trade up to get ahead of Cleveland, which kind of puts the Philadelphia Eagles in the catbird seat. So I think that the Browns are not likely to trade back from 2, but very likely to trade back from 33. I think if they do trade back from 33, a best case scenario at 30, well, trade back or trade up from 33. I think the best case scenario for that last pick for them would be, hey, look, Shedeur fell to 20. Let's trade up a 4th, get Shedeur at 20 from 33. I think another good scenario for the Browns would be to pick up an extra 3rd, move back about 10 spots in the second round, be able to get a running back, and then grab Will Howard.
Yeah, you know what? I would sign up for that, I think. If you can get Will Howard in the third and one of those really talented running backs, without question. Quincy, Carey, and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. We'll head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports4CLE, it'll be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free. We continue talking Browns with Quincy Carrier from Untitled Unfiltered Browns coverage. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Love the show. Interesting offseason. There are so many different ways that this team could go in this offseason. Quick question. I've listened to many podcasts, and I haven't heard anything about Alex Wright. Is he progressing well on his rehab, and will he be a part of the team this year? And will he be a factor? Thank you for listening.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Quincy, they typically will update health stuff, mini camp, closer to that. You would have heard if there was any setbacks with Wright. I think he's a big part. I think he has a chance to be a pretty good edge rusher.
Yeah, he can go inside, outside. I think he's fine in his recovery track. What was it, torn bicep?
Yeah.
So he should be back to working out now. I haven't heard anything of a setback about him, so I think he's right on track with everything.
All right, so Tim Hasselbeck, ESPN Sports Center, talking about Cam Ward as a potential fit for the Browns.
I think because they just recently allotted so much money to the quarterback position that's just sunk cost now, I do think getting a quarterback on a rookie contract does help them quite a bit, especially if the guy turns out to be a good player. So with that being said, both guys available, I would take Cam Ward. He's got an elite arm. He's got uncommon ability in terms of a calm and feel in the pocket. Those are two really good things that I think you can't really teach. And so you heard Kevin Stefanski talk about his path. I actually love Cam Ward's path. You know, in an era where, you know, guys aren't really competing for things the way they once did at the position because of, you know, how things go when guys transfer. To prove yourself at Incarnate Word, to prove yourself at Washington State, and then to go play quarterback at the University of Miami, as well as anybody has played it since Vinny Testaverde,
right,
I think is a really impressive path. And I think what it tells you is he makes the guys around him better, which is probably the best thing you can ever say about a quarterback.
Quincy, we keep hearing all kinds of stuff. It's the season for that. I guess the fact that transfers now are very common, and he's had success with 3 different systems, 3 different coaches. That's probably a positive.
Yeah, it's a positive because he's been able to move around, have success, 3 different varying levels of competition. The thing with Cam is, like, the big question you have about him is, can he play in structure? And it works in his favor and it doesn't work in his favor, what we just discussed there. Because the one, we pointed out how it works in his favor, but another way, he was at 3 different schools and he always played the way that he does. That makes you concerned about his ability to play in structure, right? Like, that feels like, is it coachable? Is it fixable, right? Like, some of this stuff is fixable. Some of this stuff is just too deeply ingrained to fix. And is he motivated to fix it is a big question, right? Like, is he motivated to be somebody who could be in structure? We've lived this with Deshaun, right? Hey, he's going to learn how to be in structure. It's super easy, right? Just be on time. It was not that easy for Deshaun Watson. We lived that. So, yeah, that's the big question with Cam, right? He has demonstrated over a very long football career what he can do. He's also demonstrated over a very long football career what he does not do well. And he's played enough football to make you concerned about whether these are things that he can change or not.
All right, so they had the report cards for the organizations and coaches. Players fill out anonymous questionnaires for this. It's about the facilities front office. Here's the report card for Kevin Stefanski. They gave him a C at 30th out of 32 teams. 67% of the Browns players feel Stefanski is efficient with their time. A rank of 29 out of 32. Players feel he's moderately receptive to locker room feedback on the team's needs, ranking him 30 out of 32 head coaches in the league. Again, people have gotten a little worked up on the ranking and the grade, 30 out of 32. Things like this happen when you are 3-14. Players do not like that. Nothing goes well. When you are 3-14, there isn't anything about being at work that players like.
Yeah, and part of it was like, hey, they were spending this whole time changing up the offense because they really just needed to figure out what they had in Deshaun Watson, right? And that was something that the players were vocal about not wanting to do, or having hesitation about doing. And then once it became obvious that Deshaun's not good, that, there were inklings to want to bring it back, and then the Browns just didn't do that. So I can understand them feeling like they're less hurt, but everything that's happened throughout the offseason feels like they're responding promptly to that feedback. And yeah, you're not going to get a A+ coaching grade when you win 3 games. Like, it's just not how that works. So it's I'm more concerned about like the overall equipment grades that they got. Like the facility grades were very low, which if you're a team like Cleveland who's not going to sell somebody on the glitz and glamour of the city, you do need to have excellent facilities. And right now it feels like our facilities are falling behind.
All right, before I let you go, which prospects at the Combine are you paying most attention to? What do you think which is the Combine most important for? I guess the question.
Yeah, so like we run into this trap of like we want to make one drill, the king drill of the draft, and everybody gets judged based on how they do on that one drill. But the truth is that for different prospects, different things matter, right? Some prospects you're going to really care how they do in a meeting. Some prospects you're not going to really care that much about how they do in a meeting. Some prospects you care about that 40. Some prospects you don't. It's just you want this to confirm what the work you've done throughout the spring. And I think with like somebody like CJ West today just ran a really good 40 time and a really good 10-yard split. And that's really good for him because you watch him on tape. He's explosive. He's a good player, underrated guy. But you did have concerns. Hey, how athletic is he? How small is he? Well, he measured in today. Fine. His athletics were pretty good. Somebody like Ty Robinson, a big question about him. Can he play a little bit wider if he needs to? Is he just the interior guy? He's a little light to be an interior guy. Comes out here, runs a 4.83, right? So what questions do you have about these players, and do they answer those questions is the big thing. Big wide receiver don't care how fast that 40 is unless it's like under 4.8 or something like that. But a small wide receiver, you're going to probably care what that 40 time looks like.
Quincy Carey, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Quincy.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Quincy Carey, make sure you check him out. Great stuff regarding the Browns, untitled, unfiltered Browns coverage. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. We continue talking Browns. Jeff Lloyd straight ahead. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
With the new Monopoly Bonus Spectacular family of scratch-offs from the Ohio Lottery, you can uncover a spectacular amount of winnings. With 5 games from $1 to 20, multipliers from 5 times to 100 times, over $113 million in total cash prizes and chance bonuses. What you find under a greenhouse could change everything.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams, I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We continue talking Browns on Sports for CLE. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, Dave. This is Danielle. I got a quick question for you guys. What do you guys think about taking a look at Dillon Gabriel from Oregon for potential quarterback? Let me know, guys. All right, love you. Woof, woof. Go Brownies.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Let's welcome in Jeff Lloyd, host of Browns 3D on the Orange and Brown Report. Jeff Gabriel's a guy that played a lot of college football. Size is a little bit of a concern, not the biggest guy. Day 3, as a second guy in the draft, I don't hate the idea at all.
What you're getting is a guy who's very polished, obviously very experienced. He's played a lot. Arm strength, certainly questionable. A lot of Oregon's offense was, basically, predetermined as far as, 1 read, 2 read, and get rid of the ball and I think he really, honed himself going there from Oklahoma, and it's obviously well-traveled, 3 schools in his time in college football. Not very much an athlete. Arm strength is questionable. It depends on what you would look at him for. I mean, are you looking at him as, a future backup quarterback? The league does not really love left-handed quarterbacks. It does seem kind of weird that they're just kind of anti-left-hander. But look, we've talked about this for weeks. I've talked about this for months. Look, there is not a quarterback right now that the Cleveland Browns should not at least show some interest in. You are redoing an entire quarterback room. No stone should be unturned.
All right, we showed you earlier, Abdul Carter, a stress reaction in his foot, won't require surgery. Take a look at this. This is kind of where people view him. Thought to be a better pass rusher coming out of college than Aiden Hutchinson, Nick Bosa, Will Anderson Jr. Those are all top of the draft kind of guys. According to one NFL scout, since 2015, Myles Garrett was the only pass rusher he had graded higher than Carter. He is the best talent in this draft. Reportedly, thoughts around the league that the Titans are considering drafting him first overall. And again, similar path to Micah Parsons. Penn State, off-ball linebacker, move him edge, and boy, he can play at the edge.
The thing with Carter, and, let's be realistic, you're talking about a month from now that, they say he's going to work out at Penn State's Pro Day, represented by Drew Rosenhaus. And we know, you may not like Drew Rosenhaus, but Drew Rosenhaus knows how to get what is best for his clients. There is a real possibility that Abdul Carter, we will never get workout numbers for. It's probably fair, and my guess is we probably won't. I would not advise him to work out at his pro day. And it's not the craziest thing in the world. Marvin Harrison Jr. never gave us numbers last year either, so it's not completely unfounded for this to happen. You look at Carter on tape, and there's guys that you can kind of really get the idea of what their athletic testing would be on tape. And Carter's just screams. I mean, his explosion, his burst is absolutely out of this world. If you told me he was going to run sub 4.5, he was that fast. You told me he had a vertical jump of 40. These are all things I would believe. I believe he can truly go through this process without testing, and it would not affect him. It does seem odd that at midnight there was an issue. It might need surgery, this, that, the other thing. Not even 12 hours later, no, he's good to go at his pro day. I don't know how to, view that, and that's what makes it difficult, for what we do as basically guys who, just evaluate talent, this, that, and the other thing. I can see many NFL teams looking at maybe the medical stuff differently. I don't think necessarily it's going to hinder anybody as far as, wanting him on their team. There are rumors maybe now Tennessee, could consider trading out of one. I don't think that has anything to do with what we've heard on, Abdul Carter probably in the last 18 hours. It could be that maybe they just view another player really highly as well. My guess would be Travis Hunter. So maybe they think, hey, if we could trade with the Giants, get a draft haul, and walk out with either Carter at 1 or Hunter at 3, that works for us. It would certainly not be the best thing in the world for the Cleveland Browns, who, hey, if Carter went 1, all of a sudden the Browns could possibly have quarterback of their choice at 2, which, reading the tea leaves as of right now, seems like it would be Cam Ward. It's crazy what's going on with Abdul Carter, but, maybe he's not there yet as far as his pass rush ability. But he's got everything and then some you're looking for. And let's keep in mind, Myles Garrett was good in college. Myles Garrett became great in the NFL.
All right, so we talk about quarterbacks quite a bit, and this one would be the home run if Andrew Berry finds a way to do it. If the Browns can pull off a trade for Matthew Stafford, he can run wide zone play action. Here are the numbers that back that up. Play action stats, quarterbacks 100-plus dropbacks. Stafford ranks 4th, 1,615 yards, 10 touchdowns, 5th. Hasn't thrown an interception, which is probably the most important thing. 115.4 passer rating, which is 7th. And again, you got to figure out the money, the compensation. That doesn't concern me. The money, you have to figure out. The one thing I would say, you keep hearing all the talk about Stafford being traded. Whenever you hear that, it's not posturing. It's a possibility at this point.
Well, I think the biggest thing that the hurdle would be is, would he have any interest in coming to Cleveland?
Yeah, that's fair.
I think that's probably the biggest one. Look, the rumors, and, I wasn't at a Starbucks last night, so, as far as any of that stuff. But, the rumors, and, look, I'll kind of side with Jordan Schultz on this one. I don't know much about Montana. But, I don't think you can just run into Tom Brady by accident anywhere in the United States. I'm assuming there's some detailed security where Tom Brady goes anywhere whatsoever. They would love to have him. There is certainly, the allure to the New York Giants, where he has a brother-in-law who works within the organization. That's probably the biggest, concern I have, as far as coming to Cleveland. If it were a possibility to come to fruition, yeah, I don't think you could really, do any better in this cycle with what's available than a guy like Matthew Stafford. And of course, you do hear a lot of things, that maybe the Rams aren't really sure what his market is. And that is what a lot of this is going on right now. Basically, and we've done this in the past, players like Jarvis Landry, and certainly the Browns went through it last year with Amari Cooper. You don't want to basically tell somebody that's worked for you, been employed by you, done good for you. And maybe the Browns, this is kind of what's going to go on with Nick Chubb as well. You don't want to put an offer out there that you think is fair, but it might feel that this person that you've had a relationship feels like it's a low ball offer. And then all of a sudden, that's it. Maybe there are no talks after that. So who knows if the Rams are serious, like, hey, we're not sure what you're worth on the open market. So let's see if, allowing you to talk other teams, we can kind of get an idea what your market worth is. So it could be all of that. But I'm going to be honest, Tom Brady's the greatest quarterback that ever lived. And, if there is something where, maybe, Tom truly wants him to be a part of the Raiders, Las Vegas is obviously just one of the, most incredible cities in the United States. There would be an opportunity for Matthew Stafford to make a lot more money, probably off the field within Las Vegas as well. So it's certainly probably a real possibility. And the one thing about all this is I think Tom Brady is going to have to figure out what exactly he wants to do with his life, because the NFL cannot have him be one of your top broadcasters, analyzers, and also running an NFL team.
Jeff Lloyd and I are going to step aside to take a quick time out. We'll take a look at what an ideal haul for the Browns might be in the draft. Sports for CLE. I'll be right back. Stay with us. Full Court Action is a half-hour devoted exclusively to men's and women's basketball from across the Mid-American Conference. Hello, everybody. I'm Dave Bacon. Join me at 6:30 Tuesday nights, and we'll meet the coaches and players from the Mid-American Conference who are making an impact in basketball. Full Court Action will spotlight the top plays and performances from all across the Mid-American Conference with some historical action as well. Catch Full Court Action Tuesday nights at 6:30 on Rock Entertainment Sports Network. We continue talking Browns with Jeff Lloyd from Browns 3D on the Orange and Brown Report. This is from PFF. The ideal haul for every NFL team in the first 3 rounds of the draft. For the Browns, they have Cam Ward, Oregon offensive tackle Josh Connerly, wide receiver, also from Miami, Xavier Restrepo, and Kentucky cornerback Maxwell Hairston. So, Jeff, if you can get Ward and Restrepo, one of his favorite receivers, in addition to a tackle, Connerly, and a cornerback, Hairston, first 3 rounds, you happy with that?
I do kind of maybe have a little bit of an issue with it. This wide receiver class is really, really tough. I think, there's basically about 4 or 5 that you really want. And then I kind of think everybody else is basically considered day 3. And that's probably a tough spot to be in there. Ward, Connerly, I have 0 issues with that. The cornerback selection, look, the Browns are already 5 deep at corner anyway. They draft a corner every year. I'm sure that is going to be the case this year. I mean, look, your head coach is a defensive back, your general manager is a defensive back. You love defensive backs. It's just the way it goes. But, to not have running back in there, to not have tight end in there, to not have a defensive tackle or a defensive end in there. If you look in basically what the meat and the potatoes of this draft is, it's the running back position. And look, I don't know if signing or re-signing Nick Chubb or not re-signing Nick Chubb affects it. I still think you're looking to go heavy at running back. The defensive tackle class, as we're seeing right now, is a loaded group. I don't know if you want to get in on that on day 3. I think the sweet spot on that is in day 2 and day 3. D-end, I kind of think it's kind of the same type of thing. I think you can get really good players, probably with either pick 67 or with pick 94, the pick you got in the Amari Cooper trade. I think those would be positions you might want to focus on a little bit more. The Browns need guys that can score touchdowns. So tight end, running back, in my opinion, are probably going to be a little bit more important than wide receiver. I'm not doubting the need at wide receiver. I think a lot of people are underplaying just how much the Browns need another proven wide receiver. And look, I've been hunting everybody's roster trying to find who is that trade target for Andrew Berry this year. And it's kind of difficult to necessarily find that guy for the Browns. But those first 2 picks, home run picks, I just think there'll be greater guys who are ranked higher overall at positions that probably can have a path for them to play right away.
So let me ask you this. Who, obviously running back, and I think you and I have talked, and we want 2 from this class. If you're looking at a running back at 3, our 3rd round pick, who would, if somebody's there, man, I'm running the card up, and then more realistic?
Well, first off, there's going to be good running backs to be had anywhere, because when you get a class, and I believe it is, there are several guys that have 32 with draftable grades, so that would mean a running back for every team in the NFL. If you're going to go probably what would be 67, the beginning of the 3rd round, I think a guy to me that kind of screams out right here is Dylan Sampson from Tennessee. He had a really good career. Then he finally got to basically be the bell cow this year. Still only 20 years old, so he will play all of his rookie year at 21 years old. Had a monster year for Tennessee. He's basically a one cut and go guy. And so many people, this would be a good guy to fit in Kevin Stefanski's system. It's a good system. A lot of running backs would look good in this system. Some day 3 guys that I think have some appeal. And the reason I would like them, especially when we're saying maybe this is going to be the 2nd running back you would add this year in this class, you're certainly going to put up a name like Donovan Edwards. It was weird. Donovan Edwards, August going into September, was probably one of the hottest names of all of college football. Now, very, very just basically a back burner guy, but gives you great receiving ability. LaQuint Allen Jr. out of Syracuse. This is a guy that's kind of, declared, went to the Senior Bowl, and then everybody kind of started saying, oh, well, look at this. I have a good friend whose son is on Syracuse. I watched a boatload of Syracuse football this year. He had a second straight 1,000-yard season running the ball, had 60 receptions, 500 yards receiving. That's only been done by like 3 or 4 guys in the entirety of college football. It's over 20 touchdowns. There are guys that you can pair up here. And even if Nick Chubb comes back, you have to start thinking, what is the future of this room? Nick Chubb is most likely only going to sign a 1-year deal, which means Jerome Ford as well is on the last year of his rookie deal. You know, the Nick Chubb thing is a really difficult conversation, I think, that nobody wants to have. But you, as an NFL general manager, you have to start looking at the future of all of your positional rooms. So the Browns are going to have to do that. And this is the class where you can probably get it right. And you could get 2 cheap running backs who you're probably going to pay less than Nick Chubb over the next couple of seasons. And it certainly is an avenue where this team can improve. They were low. They couldn't score points. They couldn't run the ball. And hopefully going back to the wide zone system, getting the offensive line in a better shape should allow for a lot more success. But you can get really young and good if you're the Cleveland Browns at the running back position, and it's something they really need to address.
Jeff Lloyd, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Jeff.
All the best, Dave.
Jeff Lloyd, make sure you check him out. Always really good stuff. He is the host of Browns 3D on the Orange and Brown Report. Always really insightful Browns opinions and coverage. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.